Most people think a traffic stop becomes serious when an officer starts shouting, when the siren is behind you, when the lights hit your mirror, when the officer walks up with a serious face. But in reality, the most important moment happens much earlier, when everything still looks calm. Because when a police officer looks at you and says, "Step out of the car," that single sentence changes the entire legal situation of the stop. Not because you are guilty, not because you are under arrest, but because the law gives officers specific authority in that moment that most people don't understand. And the biggest problem is this: most people respond emotionally instead of legally. They panic, they overthink, they start talking too much, and without realizing it, they begin giving away information that can later be used against them. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what "step out of the car" really means under United States law, what Supreme Court rulings actually say, what officers are allowed to do, and what you should understand before you say or do anything in that moment. Because in law enforcement encounters, the people who stay calm are not always the ones who know the most. They are the ones who understand the system. Let's slow everything down. In the United States, a traffic stop is not an arrest. It is not freedom either. It is something in between. Legally, it is called a temporary investigative detention. That means you are not free to leave, but you are not under arrest, and the officer must justify the stop under the law. The foundation of this comes from Terry v. Ohio, 1968. This Supreme Court case created the concept of reasonable suspicion. That means an officer can briefly detain a person if specific facts suggest something may be wrong. In traffic situations, that could include speeding, lane violation, broken light, expired registration, suspicious driving behavior. But here is what most people don't realize. The stop is not about proving guilt. It is about investigating possibility. And during that investigation, the officer controls the environment. Your car is stopped. Your movement is restricted. Your decisions are happening under pressure. And that is exactly why this situation is legally sensitive. Because under pressure, people behave differently. They talk more. They explain more. They try to cooperate more than necessary. And that is where problems begin. Now let's talk about the exact command. Step out of the car. This is not random. This is backed by Supreme Court law. Pennsylvania v. Mims, 1977. The court ruled that during a lawful traffic stop, officers are allowed to order the driver out of the vehicle. The reasoning is based on one main idea: officer safety. Courts decided that traffic stops involve unknown risks. Vehicles can hide weapons. Movement inside a car is harder to control. So the court allowed officers to ask driver to exit control positioning outside vehicle. But here is the key misunderstanding. This ruling does not give unlimited police power. It does not mean you are guilty, you are under arrest, you lose your constitutional rights. It only changes the physical setting of the stop. You are now outside the vehicle, and legally the stop continues under the same detention. This is where law meets human psychology. Because when most people hear, "Step out of the car," their brain does not analyze law. It reacts emotionally. Common reactions include fear, confusion, overthinking, urgency to cooperate, desire to fix the situation. And in that emotional state, people make one major mistake. They start explaining everything. They say things like, "I wasn't speeding that much. I didn't see the sign. I'm just going home." But legally speaking, none of this is required. And worse, everything you say becomes part of a report. And reports can be used later in court. This is why legal experts emphasize something very simple. Do not volunteer unnecessary information. Because police are not only listening to what you did, they are listening to how you explain it. And explanation often becomes evidence. When you step out of the car, a few important things change. 1. Physical control shifts. The officer now controls your position outside the vehicle. 2. Observation increases. Officer can see your behavior more clearly. 3. Safety procedures may increase, such as pat down if suspicion exists, separation from vehicle, backup officer arrival. But here is what does not change. Your rights do not disappear. Your right to remain silent still exists. You are still not automatically under arrest. This distinction is extremely important because many people think, "Now I must explain everything." That is not true. Now let's go deeper into what officers can legally do outside the car. Under Terry v. Ohio, if an officer has reasonable suspicion that a person may be armed and dangerous, they may conduct a limited pat-down. Important points. It is for weapons only. It is not a full search. It is based on safety concern. Now, many people misunderstand this part. A pat-down does not automatically mean they can search your pockets freely. They can open your bag. They can search your phone. Those actions require consent, probable cause, or a warrant in many cases. This is where confusion often leads people to accidentally agree to searches they didn't need to agree to. Because once consent is given, the legal situation changes completely. In most traffic stops, police do not need force. They need permission, and that permission is called consent. If you voluntarily agree to search your car, to open your trunk, to show items, that becomes legally valid in most situations, even without a warrant, even without arrest. This is why officers often use soft language like, "Do you mind if I take a quick look? Can you just step over here for me? Let's make sure everything is okay." These are designed to feel casual, but legally they can become very important because many cases are built on consent, not force. One of the biggest myths is, if I stay silent, I look guilty. That is not legally true. Under the Fifth Amendment, you have the right to remain silent. You are not required to explain yourself. Silence cannot legally be used as proof of guilt in the same way as statements. But socially, people feel pressure to talk. They want to appear cooperative. They want the stop to end quickly. And that emotional pressure leads to overtalking. But in legal reality, less talking, less risk of misinterpretation. Let's imagine real situations. Scenario 1. Officer says, "Step out of the car." Driver says too much, explains travel, mentions unrelated details. Later, that information is included in report. Scenario 2. Driver immediately consents to search. Officer finds nothing illegal, but interaction still becomes documented. Scenario 3. Driver panics and argues. Situation escalates unnecessarily. What do all these scenarios have in common? Not criminal behavior, but communication mistakes. At the end of the day, a traffic stop is not a test of fear. It is a test of awareness. The officer has training. You don't need to match it, but you do need to understand your position. Because the law is not just about what is allowed. It is about what is understood. And the people who understand it stay calmer, speak less, and avoid unnecessary problems. So remember this. When you hear "step out of the car," that is not the moment to panic. It is the moment to be aware. Because awareness is what protects you more than anything else.